Who's not presenting, apparently. Good evening. It's Monday, May 12th, 2025, 5:30 p.m. First up on our agenda is lobbyist wrap-up report by Gil Romero, Capital Success Group. Good evening, you guys.
Or not.
No, Brian's no. I guess they want to give him a 30-minute.
You're ready, we're ready.
Yep.
Mic on. Thank you. I've got Romero's to the left of me, Romero's to the right of me, and I feel pretty comfortable. We're ready to proceed. Thank you for the privilege to present to council this evening. Madam Mayor, President Aliff, members of City Council. The session's over. So with the big relief, a number of bills, number of pieces of legislation were introduced this past session. A total of 657 bills were introduced and 585 bills were passed. I can guarantee that perhaps not every single one of these bills that passed will have an impact on this state or impact on the city, but a lot of them will. Significant impact on the city. When we look at this sort of scorecard, the number of bills passed is sort of like the score for the Nuggets and Oklahoma. There's a final score and a team wins, a team loses. This is different when you get to the end of a 120-day session. There are significant pieces of legislation that we won't probably know the impact for months when or if the governor signs some of these bills. One of the things that I wanted to point out to all of you, it's not on our presentation today, but I think it was probably one of the more significant bills. I know that Councilor Flores had mentioned this early on in the session, that there was a bill involving safety net healthcare funding. At the very end of the session, because there was a disagreement with the governor and members of the legislature, a new bill was introduced in the last few days of the session, Senate Bill 290. This particular bill aims at stabilizing the Colorado strain safety net healthcare system. The bill responds to the loss of Medicaid coverage for approximately 575,000 people in Colorado, which has significantly increased the number of uninsured patients and left many clinics operating with negative margins. That's very, very true here in Pueblo. We worked along with a number of lobbyists, CML, CCI, to get this bill across the finish line. The bill creates a provider stabilization fund that will receive a minimum of $100 million in investment. That's the good part. The bad part of this bill, which we'll have to see what happens, is that this bill was funded with, as you know, there's a $1.2 billion shortfall this year in the budget. This bill is funded with unclaimed property in the state treasurer's office. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to all of the people that either, an electric bill or a gas bill that they got a refund on, they didn't know, and they moved, and that money goes into this fund. It has about $1.5 billion in it. They want to use the interest from that. That was a big concern at the end of the session on how it was funded. But, this bill is really important because there are a number of clinics in Pueblo that need this stabilization funding. So the bill passed, but there's certainly some concern about how it was funded. Finally, just a couple of things on the state budget. Both successes and failures. We did as much as we could to preserve and stabilize and make sure that no cuts were made to Pueblo in terms of healthcare through the Department of Local Affairs, any of the grants. But there are a couple of areas where we didn't meet the mark in terms of trying to minimize the impact on the city of Pueblo. One was First Appearance Defense Council. As you know, this city, it uses those funds to appoint counsel for people that can't afford that money. That fund was completely wiped out. So the city will probably have to find another source of money when it comes to people that are indigent and can't afford counsel in municipal court. The other piece that we worked really, really hard on, and we thought we had an agreement with the Joint Budget Committee and this is, again, working with CML, was the retail marijuana state sales tax share back to local governments. The the Joint Budget Committee and the legislature permanently reduced the share back from 10% to 3.5. As we look at next year, as you know, this was a $1.2 billion shortfall. We expect that next year's budget is going to be probably even tougher. They used a number of, would I say easier, it's still tough decisions, but they swept all the cash accounts that they could to the tune of about $400 million. That money's not available to them anymore. Those savings accounts are completely wiped out in order to minimize other cuts. And so we'll probably see some pretty difficult challenges in the budget next year. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to talk to you a little bit about the municipal court legislation.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Ryan Romero with Capital Success Group. As you all know, we've discussed municipal court legislation since before the session started. We started hearing about potential policy changes last summer, and two of our highest priority bills once the session started was House Bill 25-1147, Fairness and Transparency in Municipal Court, and Senate Bill 25-062, Failure to Appear Charges in Municipal Court. The first one, 1147, was probably our highest priority bill of the session. We, along with the Colorado Municipal League and other municipalities, put a lot of resources into lobbying against this, and it unfortunately did pass. The governor has until June 6th to sign or veto or let the law or let it become law without his signature. All the way up until the end of the session, we continued to put pressure with letter writing campaigns and just advocacy outreach to pressure him to veto it. So we are still very hopeful that he does that. And just as a refresher, the HB 1147 attempts to standardize municipal sentencing and court practices with state law by capping jail sentences for municipal offenses to match comparable state offenses, clarifies that municipal court defendants have a right to counsel, and that municipal defense counsel have the same notice, case information, and opportunity to meet with their clients as do state level defense counsel. It would mandate real-time remote access to all open court proceedings, including for in-custody defendants. They did add a provision at the end that domestic violence sentencing reforms will be delayed until 2026. And, our biggest concern among many is that it limits home rule authority regarding public safety. So as I said, the governor has until June 6th. We will keep an eye on that and inform you as soon as a decision is made. The other municipal court bill that we spent a lot of time lobbying this session was Senate Bill 62, the Failure to Appear Charges in Municipal Court. This one was unfortunately signed by the governor. It prohibits municipal courts from filing criminal charges solely for person's failure to appear. Judges may still issue bench warrants and consider missed appearances during bond hearings. And this will take effect April 17th, 2025. And before I forget, I do want to say a huge thank you to all of you, the mayor's office, the mayor, Brian, City Attorney Sykes, Chief of Police, for coming up to testify, for all of the resources they provided us. It was a huge help, as it is every year. So thank you. And I'll pass it on to Alec to discuss some other legislative highlights.
Evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Alec Romero with Capital Success Group. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. While there are many bills that will affect the city in different ways, we wanted to spotlight a few different bills that reflect some of Pueblo's priorities, especially in the areas of public safety and childcare access. Senate Bill 25-310. This bill implements Proposition 130. This was passed by the voters in November. This required the legislature to fund law enforcement to the tune of $350 million for hiring, training, and retention, but gave no details on how those funds would be allocated. So what this bill does is it creates a new peace officer support fund starting at $15 million in FY 26-27. This has the potential to rise to $35 million each year. Agencies will receive $15,000 in a base grant and then a plus a per officer amount, depending on how many funds are available. The bill also establishes a $1 million death benefit for officers, firefighters, and EMS workers killed in the line of duty. And this is retroactive to November 5th, 2024. The next piece of legislation is Senate Bill 25004. I want to thank Councilor Martinez for her advocacy on this bill. The city of Pueblo formally supported this bill. It requires childcare providers to refund application and deposit fees if a child isn't enrolled within 6 months and mandates clear disclosures of all fees to families. The next bill is House Bill 251062. This makes the theft of any firearm a Class 6 felony, regardless of value. Previously, low-value firearm theft could be charged as a misdemeanor. So in the bottom right-hand side of this slide, you can see there's some other notable legislation that was postponed indefinitely. We just wanted to flag these bills for you because they could return in some form next year. That's House Bill 251206. This bill would have lowered the penalties for attempted murder involving extreme indifference and eliminated a related assault charge from statute. This bill was opposed by all 23 DAs across the state. The next bill is House Bill 251286, protecting workers from extreme temperatures. This bill would have been somewhat duplicative in relation to federal law. The provisions in this bill would have been both fiscally and technically infeasible. The next bill Gil briefly mentioned is House Bill 251174. This proposed capping insurer reimbursements to certain hospitals for state employee and small group health plans, aiming to reduce healthcare costs. However, it faced significant opposition from the hospital industry and insurers as well. House Bill 251169, housing developments on faith and educational land. This bill would have allowed housing on faith and education-owned land to bypass traditional local zoning processes and instead be approved through an administrative review process. This would have limited local control over land use. We'll keep monitoring these topics during the interim and stay engaged in the stakeholder process. I'll now turn it over back to Gil. He's going to talk about what's ahead.
Thank you. And I know we have limited time. Just in terms of where we're at now, as we move forward, the one thing that we'll be following is the June forecast to sort of get a feel for what the budget's going to look like in January. We'll have this forecast and we'll have the December forecast. But what we wanted to talk to council, and the reason we wanted to come down in person is, this process is a tough, grueling process. And a lot of the times we're playing defense. And so what we would like to encourage council and the mayor's office is to start looking at some things this summer that you think would be important for the legislature to consider that would help Pueblo. So that we can go find the sponsors and so that we can not just play defense, but we can actually decide this is a bill that we want. We're not going to be fighting something. We're not fighting to defeat something. This is really, really important to Pueblo. So you have our pledge that we would like to work with all of you. If you think of anything, whether it's a health issue, whether it's something having to do with public safety, anything that you think would improve this community. This is our community. As you know, we were born and raised in Pueblo. We're very proud of it, and we're proud to represent each of you. But sometimes it feels like we could do more when we're on offense, when we're actually saying this is something that's really important. Not a license plate, and not to minimize a license plate, but something that has impact on the city that we're going to carry forward. So it's our pledge with the mayor's office and for all of you, if you have something, whether it's a business idea, something that you think would really help the city, then we want to be able to start working on that, those potential pieces of legislation over the course of the next several months. Again, thank you so much for the privilege to say we represent the city of Pueblo. Every time that we're talking to a state senator or to a representative or somebody from the governor's office, that's how we start the conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Council, anything from council? Council Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Romeros. I know, I feel like it's running a marathon, but at its sprint's pace the whole time. So I appreciate, all of your hard work throughout the session. I literally can't imagine what that's like. So thank you for all of your hard work. Alec, when you talk about Prop 130, can you remind me how that revenue is generated?
So it's pretty tricky, but what the legislature decided to do is they're going to throw $500 million into PARA. PARA will generate interest
Okay,
and they will dedicate that money to reach that 35 million ceiling a year. But that's only if they gain interest on that amount of money that they put into PARA. Otherwise, they will dedicate general fund dollars 15 million each year, no matter what. So there is general fund dollars going directly into the fund.
okay.
Yeah, and it's a really good question because there was a concern that if they had decided to do the funding with general fund, it would have meant another additional amount of cuts to some really important programs. So they came up with this creative way. And for those people in the audience or listening that get a state pension, this actually helps PARA. Putting this 500 million stabilizes it, and they use the interest from that 500 million they get. So interesting financing, but I think it's going to work in this case.
So talking about next fiscal year, I know that you said the budget's probably going to be even tighter next year. Can you talk a little bit more about what next, what I guess your predictions are for next year's budget?
Well, one of the most important things that the legislature did this year, and again, this is bigger than the city, it's bigger than the county, but it's important to the city and county of Pueblo, is they fully funded K-12. It was a commitment they made last year. In particular for Pueblo, because I follow Pueblo, is if you are in a district with declining enrollment, the governor's budget would have cut those schools that had declining enrollment. It was the legislature that said that we're not going to do that to these schools, and they said we made a commitment last year to fully fund, and that's a great goal to have. I don't know if they can sustain that. If they do that, this is the first year, and it goes back how long I've been doing this, but for as long as I can remember, and when I was on the budget committee for 8 years, the number one, the biggest part of the budget was K-12. This is the first time in the history of budgets that healthcare now is the number one part of the budget. Again, because we have an aging population and we have folks that are really dependent on Medicaid. That's something to really watch. And this last year, that's the piece that really hurt in terms of the challenges that the legislature had, is how to fund healthcare policy and finance and Medicaid. So to answer your question, it's just going to be difficult because they used, as I said, they used they had to make some tough decisions, but one of the things they did that they can't use next year is they swept all these cash funds. That's not going to be available. And that's about $400 million. So I hope that the June forecast is better, but we'll be coming back to you next year, hopefully trying to protect some pretty valuable programs. It's not going to be any better next year. So I'm not sure. The same budget committee is going to be working on this. And so hopefully they have some tricks up their sleeve, and we'll be reporting some of that stuff out to you as we hear it.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate that perspective, Gil, especially because of your experience and your expertise serving on JPC. It's just so worrying and anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
But talking about, I guess, on the offense, Chief of Staff McCain last week, I believe, actually proposed an idea of potentially creating some legislative corrective fixes to Prop 123 and how those funds could be, or I guess how the formula works specifically to take advantage of Prop 123 funds, particularly for our community, which has a lot of affordable housing stock. or that qualifies in the AMI. So I think that could be an easy first kind of thing. I'm also wondering can you remind me, Gil, do we contract for federal lobbying or is it only state lobbying with you guys?
Just state.
Okay, thanks.
But one of the things that I'd like to suggest to the mayor and to all of you is there was a bill this year having to do with just transitions. And because of Comanche 3, we were hoping that they would put additional resources, but what they were going to do is take the same pie and give it to, the communities that have more significant impact. What I'd like to see, and I'd like for us to consider and have legislators consider, is trying to find a source of money that would really be designated for like cities like Pueblo that are really going to feel this, this crunch of energy. And it's going to take a while, for communities, and they debated this. This affects a lot of rural communities in terms of coal transition, but I think there is a sense of support that, in a bipartisan support to look at communities like Pueblo that are going through those kinds of transitions with coal. So another idea that I want to bring forward, but we'll have to find a source of revenue that would fund that, and then the city could pull those funds to help for energy.
Is that it? Council Flores?
What I'm concerned about is obviously the state, is going to have to tighten its belt. But what worries me is the uncertainty of what's going to happen with the federal government and how this all washes out this year. Because I think, we're going to see lots of reductions of whether they're grants or whether they're pass-throughs from the feds to the states. How is the structure at the state legislature? How are they structured in a way of who's overseeing all of this so that, a city like Pueblo can prepare itself? Are we going to lose this grant? Are we going to lose this federal pot of money that had been promised to us, but now is taken back? All of these issues of uncertainty have me concerned. I mean, what is the process at the state level? First of all, what department is looking at this? Yeah. And how are they going to react to this if, because I see a community like Pueblo, obviously we're not at the top of the list at the state level. We're not going to be at the top level at the federal level. And, how do we prepare for that, I guess, in our community, especially the cuts in Medicaid, the cuts in everything else that we always seem to be last. But I just see a lot of mental health cuts, a lot of cuts in addiction programs, all of that kind of stuff. I just see that on the horizon.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. So there are two entities. The governor's office has a task force that's looking at all of the implications as they start the markups, and they're doing the markups now at the federal level. I do have some experience. I did some federal lobbying. And so they're trying to minimize the level of those Medicaid cuts. Also, the committee that I formerly served on, the Joint Budget Committee, has formed a task force to look at all of those implications. We may be back in special session in September, October. I can tell you that there are emergency plans that if some of these cuts come to fruition in terms of Medicaid, we'll probably see some really, really harsh, significant impacts, both in K-12, in healthcare and higher education. And so we'll see what happens. I think people are prepared for a special session, not only with respect to impacts from the federal government, but there was an issue that did not get resolved to the satisfaction of the governor involving artificial intelligence that has to be taken care of this year. So AI is a number of things, but it will be a limited scope special session. It'll probably occur in September, October, and we'll keep you advised on that.
Thank you.
Council Maestri.
Thank you, gentlemen, for wanting to take things forward for the city of Pueblo. And unfortunately, we have two legislators in the Capitol that are specific to our region. That is Senate District 3 and House District 46. And it took you guys to ask us and work with us to see what we're going to have to do up at the state Capitol, because I haven't seen it come come in from either one of those representatives to come in here and say, City of Pueblo, what is it that's affecting you down here that we can do something differently up there? No, they're sponsoring it. That's what the people of this community need to know, who they've elected, who we've put into office here locally, and why we are having to suffer some of these policies that are being put forth here in our community, especially when it comes to crime and safety. The other thing too is thank you for going to work against 1147. I mean, unfortunately, that just didn't come out of the blue. That was abuse of power by local municipal courts that brought the legislation to come down, and legislators come down and want to try to take over. That was unfortunate because it was brought on by a lot of the communities that were abusing their power when it came to those sentencing. I just want to thank you guys for sticking up for us and coming to the table and fighting for us, because we are a community here that kind of gets lost in it. Even as big as we are, we're still the small guy in the group. As far as, the federal funding that we talk about that we might be losing, that's all up to the state legislation. If they want to continue with putting policies forward, I mean, we talk about Medicaid cuts. Medicaid cuts are very important, but they take away from the service and the health and the welfare of a community. At the same time, there is policies put in place, and I say this for the public so that they understand. There are policies and programs put in place that probably shouldn't be covered by taxpayer dollars. And what it does is it drains from those who have just the everyday physical and health, problems that they come across, because it's being drained out by other things that state legislators think that we should be paying for. And maybe we should just be taking care of the people who need it with, and not, I'm just going to say it, because it was a big shock to people when Amendment 79 went through, and then people didn't realize that they were having their taxpayer dollars were going towards funding the subject matter. Gender affirming surgeries, those kinds of things. When you put those into the Medicaid program, it takes away, and I'm saying this to the citizens, it takes away from those who need regular everyday health care. And so if the federal government is trying to slap our hands for that, nobody just comes in and takes away. There's always a reason behind things when they're taking away. And thank you for bringing all of these things to our attention and serving Pueblo. I mean, you guys, you're hometown boys, and so you serve Pueblo well, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Maestri. If I can just respond to your comments. The reason we talked to Brian, we happened to be in a hearing room at about 11 o'clock one night, listening to a bill that impacted Pueblo. And we just decided, it's sort of the definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. That's when we decided we've got, and we don't have to rely on any particular legislator. It doesn't have to be, if we have a good idea, we'll find a legislator, and we'll find other communities that are similarly situated, just like coal transition issues, where we can find the money. So we don't, there is a better way to do this. And I think, it's not a question of failure. I think we have to start looking at this differently for Pueblo. And as I said, not just simply saying, well, geez, what are they going to do to us this year? What are we going to do to change things for this community that we're so proud of? Thank you.
Thank you.
President Nagle.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Once again, an extraordinary session, and you guys do such fantastic work. It's such a pleasure to work with you guys, and your attention to detail and your communication with City Council is second to none. And once again, I think in terms of service, you hit it out of the ballpark.
Thank you.
I like the fact that you want to some ideas moving into the summer and towards next year when gathering support and doing things. I can tell you this, that we would probably erect a statue of the three of you out in front of City Hall here. If you can get us support and put together a coalition that can get the city of Pueblo and all of the communities that are not on, that do not have a municipal utility, Community Choice Energy. I mean, I know it's been at the Capitol for 9 years. It can't even get into committee. Maybe with the new governor coming and some other things, you guys can make this happen. But I mean, that's what I think is the most critical issue facing us as a community. And you know, we have to get it done somehow. And there has to be a solution somewhere to make that happen. And I'll work with you in any way that I can. And I'm sure we can bring something back to council that makes sense, but that's my goal.
Well, President Aliff, you know, one of the things, you know, that last year was an idea that everybody laughed at and this year passed in terms of looking at alternatives is nuclear energy. I know these things, you know, you think about them, you think about, you know, science fiction movies that you saw, but I think a lot of these areas, I think, are things that are possibilities now. It's just going to take, I think a balance in the legislature to have these ideas, you know, come forward. But in the meantime, until that's done, I do think communities that are facing a shutdown at Comanche 3, like we are, there ought to be more resources for us as a community so that we can help residents in Pueblo. So we'll continue to look at those things as well.
Anybody else? Council Boston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight and for everything you guys do. It's really nice to see you
Thank you,
again.
Councilor
Finally
Boston.
have somebody rivaling Roger's good haircut in here. But no, I doubled down on everything President Aliff said. You know, talking with everybody, and you know, the biggest issues in Pueblo, a lot of people want to, you know, point to crime and, you know, other things that want to affect economic development, education, things like that. But from the experts, what we hear is it is utilities. So 100%, if there's anything you guys can do to try to get that going forward, we would greatly appreciate that. And we'll do anything we can to help and support.
Do you have any idea of the size of the statue?
At least life size. 6 feet.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Council Latino, are you up? Good. Anybody else? I'd like to say something real quick. When you talk about good ideas and people tell me I'm full of it, but there's a couple of things that, and I always looked as I learned through this process, and that all things we have in common are safety, safety, safety. I don't care if it's the mayor, I don't care if it's the police chief, I don't care if it's and I'm just totally exasperated what's going on in the lower income areas and all of Pueblo. Of course, it impacts everybody. But I'll give you a perfect example. I've thought about some ideas, and maybe I don't know how I can utilize you guys to get the message across that Pueblo could be a great pilot place since we're at this lower ebb with the crime. Why we're not thinking about stuff like low income housing, gated community? Now, we talk about in Bessemer, where we just had for lack of a better term, the shoot at the OK Corral. That place now, this ideas about putting low income in there. Now, if we thought outside the box, and if we could get a pilot program where that place could be surrounded and the keys can be given to whoever the ranger, whatever it is going to take. Those are ideas that I think we can take the lead on to make our citizens who deserve safety. I don't care if you live in the worst place in Pueblo or the best place. And thinking outside the box on some of this stuff is so important to me. If you look what happened today, it was in the paper all day. What happened over at the Dollar General? I mean, that place has been closed for weeks now. It got so bad, and I live right around the corner. It got so bad that they busted every single door open again, and it's been closed because of theft. It's just nonstop. Well, today, they opened it up for all their friends to come on in and just wipe the store out. Just before I came over, I talked to a welder that was there, welding iron on these this Dollar General store. Not because they haven't tried to keep it protected. Wood doesn't make it anymore. It's wrought iron that's doing it. So I'm thinking about programs like this, low income housing gated communities for a reason. And I think if we did a cost benefit analysis in the long run, we'd probably save a lot of money. That's just my opinion. So that's something I'd like to bring forward to you guys. I'll come sit down with you. I'll come meet with you and see how we can get this done, because I think Pueblo's got so much potential. Just got to think outside the box. That's it.
So Chair-
Anything else?
Yeah, Chair Gomez, just to that point, and this is as a former prosecutor and a former state public defender, that's why I was so dismayed by the House Bill 1147. And you're right on, Councilor Maestri. Whatever prompted that bill, what it didn't do is it didn't lead to a broader discussion about other sort of things that create problems in communities around law enforcement. It was limited to that sort of debate. And so to your point, that's why we hope 1147 will get vetoed by the governor. I know that the Colorado Municipal League and others are saying, let's bring a bigger bill. Let's bring a bill that'll work for Pueblo and not interfere with our ability to do enforcement, but look at more proactive things like you're talking about that are the things that create problems and have people going to municipal court around housing and safety and those kinds of things. And so that particular argument you just made is the argument we've been making to the governor's office, so that he'll veto that bill so we can all come back and have a broader discussion. And we thank you for all the comments today. We really appreciate that. I know we're probably delaying some important stuff, but we thank you for the time that you gave us tonight.
And I feel like we have family up there at
Yeah.
the State House with you guys, and I appreciate it very much. Mr. Latino.
I want to thank you guys again for coming down. And again, I concur and agree with Councilor Gomez. I'm willing to do the same thing because we have the same issues on the Lower East Side.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Latino. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
folks. Next up, we have the Healthy Beverages for All, Gabby Stapleton, Health Promotion Specialist, and Jessica Apodaca, Program Manager. 15-minute presentation. Maybe 16 if we're lucky. Thank you, folks. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to present this program to you tonight. I am Gabby Stapleton, Project Lead and Facilitator of the Drink to Grow Coalition for this program.
And then my name is Jessica Apodaca, and I'm a program, a program manager at the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment, and I support Gabby with this program and the Drink to Grow Coalition.
The Healthy Beverages for All program is focused on, actually, I'm ahead of myself. Let me first start with, this is a grant program funded by the Cancer, Cardiovascular, Pulmonary Disease Grants Program, CCPD for short. The current grant cycle is 2023 to 2026, with the potential of a 2-year extension that is currently being applied for. The program is focused on decreasing excessive consumption of sugary drinks through municipal level policy called a Healthy Drinks in Kids Meal Policy. The purpose of that is to prevent chronic diseases and address health inequities across Colorado, as this is a statewide initiative happening. Specifically, sugary drinks are one of the leading causes of chronic diseases such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, and even tooth decay. Sugary drinks are the largest source of added sugar in the American diet. So it's a growing problem, unfortunately. So here to provide some examples of the sugar amounts that are in a variety of different beverage options. The first being the soda. The amount of sugar in that can equal up to 18 cookies, which is pretty substantial. So we wanted to provide some examples of just the sugar content in several different beverage options. I'd like to share some local data. So according to our community health assessment conducted in 2021. This was done by the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment. We measured the age group of 1 to 14-year-olds who consume sugar sweetened beverages 1 or more times per day. So at that point in time, Pueblo's rate was at 24% compared to Colorado's rate of 15%. So we can see there that we exceed it by almost 10%. And that shows us that this is a growing problem. As I mentioned earlier, this is a statewide initiative that is happening in 7 other counties currently, but there is some areas that have successfully passed this policy, starting with Lafayette in 2017, Longmont, Golden, and most recently, Denver and Louisville passed this policy last year in 2024. And currently we have Carbondale, Adams County, and ourselves, Pueblo, working toward passing the Healthy Drinks and Kids Meal policy. This policy means that we are hoping to create a new standard for drinks that are offered by all food establishments. Those food establishments, though, that already offer a bundled kids meal. And what that means is we are hoping that they will change their current advertising to include only water, unsweetened milk, or a milk alternative if they choose with that bundled meal. This would mean that the policy has the potential to prevent short and long-term health consequences, specifically for children. I'd like to point out that this policy would not take away parents' choice if they choose to still order a soda, lemonade, tea, something like that, that they may view as a treat when they go out to eat. They can certainly still do so. This policy would just mean that those options are no longer included as that automatic beverage. Also, this policy would not impact all restaurants. It would only impact the restaurants that have a bundled meal. So I will share some more detail on that in a little bit. Here we have an example of what most kids' menus currently look like. Most of them offer a variety of options, such as milk, juice, fountain drinks, etc. And here we have an example of what we're hoping to change it to so that all children's entrees are served with water or milk. And on that note, milk is not a requirement of this policy. That would be up to the restaurant if they choose to include milk as one of the options. But we're hoping that at least water would be included as that automatic default beverage included in the meal as a way to make the healthy choice the easy choice for parents and kids. Now, as we have started this work, we're currently in year 2. And so throughout years 1 and 2, we've focused heavily on community outreach work. And we started by creating a survey called Drink to Grow. We distributed that community-wide as much as we could to get as many respondents as possible. We had 321 people take the survey, and the result of that was 81 of the respondents said they are in support of a Healthy Drinks and Kids Meal policy. Also, we attended a variety of different community events where we have distributed program materials to educate on what this program is. And in doing so, we've received, the slide reflects 72 pledge cards, but over the weekend, we had another event where we received 20 more. So a total now of 92 pledge cards from community members. Specifically, we worked with our public library system to coordinate a toddler storytime series, which was a great opportunity to connect with families, parents, and children. And that was where we were really able to have one-on-one conversations to educate them on what this policy would mean for the community. And currently, we are working on our outreach to restaurants to make sure they are educated on what this program is, help them understand all of the details of it, and ultimately ask if they would be in support of this or not. And in doing so, we have been able to identify a Healthy Drinks and Kids Meal champion. And I'll share who that is in just a little bit. But on our restaurant outreach, I wanted to share, again, we have about 300, maybe a little more, 300 restaurants in total in Pueblo, but this policy would affect 96 of those restaurants, as 96 are the ones who offer a bundled kids meal. So to break it down even more, 34 of those are local restaurants and 62 are chain restaurants. The 34 local restaurants have been visited in person. All of the restaurants in total have been contacted via email, but the 34 have been visited in person. And we're currently working on visiting the 62 chain restaurants as well. So through our community outreach work, we have presented this program to a variety of organizations to hopefully get their support of it as well. We have received letters of support and endorsements from the following organizations: UC Health Parkview, Common Spirit St. Mary Corwin, Pueblo Community College Children First, Colorado Blue Sky, Colorado Restaurant Association, and one restaurant who signed a pledge card to show their support, which is BNC Tacos. Now, specifically, we would like to highlight Southwest Grill. So thank you, Councilor Boston, for being willing to be our first volunteer to try out this policy of the healthy drinks and kids meals. We wanted to share a little bit more about the support we've received in pledge cards. So we, again, have received 92 in total. We broke them down for those who identified within city limits. And here we share where each of those lie in the districts. And then we wanted to just share a few impactful quotes from community members. So I'll just share one. It would be beneficial that we ensure kids have water instead of caffeine or sugar, and ultimately support this. Now, if this policy were to be passed as a city ordinance, we do have an implementation plan. So we would continue our restaurant work, of course, by providing even more detailed education to the restaurants to help them understand what the new law would mean. And we would help them to become compliant with it. So there would be a voluntary compliance period of 6 months to a year. And we also, since this is a grant program, we have grant funds available to assist them with reprinting the menus, since they'll need to do menu revisions. So that would help offset costs to restaurants so that it's not a burden on them. As for enforcement options for a city ordinance like this, we have a couple, starting with a complaint-based model, business licensing model, and restaurant inspections. The complaint-based model is where community members would report restaurants that are out of compliance to the health promotion specialist or the Drink to Grow Coalition. A page on the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment's website with information on technical assistance will be shared with those out of compliance to fulfill the enforcement piece. The business licensing model would mean we make this a requirement for businesses to obtain their business license or renew it within the city. Restaurant inspections is the last option due to the ordinance wouldn't fall under the Colorado Retail Food Establishment Code because they are focused specifically on food safety. So that's why we're focusing on the first two options first, and this would be a last resort. Ultimately, our ask to the council is, will you help to protect our kids? We hope City Council will support the Healthy Drinks and Kids Meal Initiative to improve children's health, access to healthy choices, promote healthy behavior change at a young age, prevent chronic diseases from increasing. So now I would like to allow time for feedback, comments, questions, and to discuss next steps. Thank you very much again.
Council, anything here? Brett Boston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, guys. And just for some context, I met with these ladies before, and I think this is a great initiative. Really, as a restaurateur, being only able to offer water as an option and not being forced to offer anything else, it doesn't really put much strain on any business owners. It just makes it the default option. I myself did not have a bundled kids meal at my location, but just having, giving the support to this and, the healthy healthiness for children, I think is a good thing to support going forward. To try to decrease some of these diseases in kids, I think is a great initiative to follow. Like I said, the way I had it at my restaurant is you would always purchase any extra beverage already. So just having the default option be water, or if you want to, you know, add milk as an option. I don't see this as much of a strain, them being willing to use the grant funding to help with reprinting of menus, to help with costs as a business. I mean, I just don't really see many negatives from this, and I don't see it as a force to any business owners. It's just trying to help push kids in the right direction as a default option. But as they said, parental choice is still a thing. And, you know, if somebody wants to get a soda or a juice or anything like that, they still can. So I think this is a good idea. It helps with the health of our children, and I am in support of it.
Council Martinez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation. You know, as a new mom, I'm navigating the healthcare system with the baby now. And I went to a pediatric dentist the other day, and they told me that 1 in every 4 of our Pueblo kids has a cavity, which is like bonkers to me. I don't know. Have you seen that data?
Yes.
And to your point, Ms. Stapleton, like the more that kids have cavities, the worse long-term health outcomes they have. And so I like what you said, that this really just makes it the easiest way possible to obtain healthy food and beverages. I have a couple of questions regarding the other communities that have passed this policy. Can you talk a little bit about what those look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Real quickly, I'd just like to thank Counselor Boston, Counselor Martinez for your positive feedback. We greatly appreciate your support. And to address some of the other areas, we have Louisville and Denver, who most recently passed this policy in 2024. Louisville was March of 24, Denver was September of 24. Both of those are fairly new. So we don't have a whole lot of data from them right now because Louisville's ordinance just went into effect last month in April. Denver's is going into effect in July. So I hope that answers your question.
How long did they have for the education period, I guess, between when their council passed it and when it was effective?
I don't know the exact time frame. That is something Jessica may remember.
Yeah, it varies depending on the municipality. So actually for Denver, it was passed last March and it's going to affect in July. So they gave them a long grace period, and that's where the education would take place. So it's really up to, I think that's on the last slide, you know, that's where all of your, you know, feedback. We really want this at no burden to the restaurants. We want a lot of education and peace. So it's really dependent. Each of the 5 municipalities have also done their enforcement a little differently. And so that's why it's more of a conversation of what would work for our community. So we've left kind of those fines and enforcement and kind of that grace period open for discussion. And again, at no burden to the restaurant. We want to make sure they understand how can we support them in education and to really set it up. So we can get the individual, like we can send you each ordinance if that would be helpful for you to see the differences, but each one is different.
I think it would be, you know, I guess looking at the complaint-based model first, because it doesn't necessarily take a lot of FTE on staff necessarily, right? Because like you're following up only if there's a complaint. So I guess that's what makes the most sense to me, is the complaint-based model for enforcement. And I like the idea of, you know, giving, I think 6 months to a year with, you know, the TA of helping to reprint menus. And I think educating, you know, because I didn't know from being a mom now that 1 in every 4 of our kids has cavities, and that, you know, a can of soda has, you know, 16 cookies in it, 18 cookies in it. So I think that education piece would be crucial. So I like the idea of having a year for it to be in compliance, and then it would be a complaint-based thing.
Okay, Council Maestri.
You know, as a parent, and most parents always say, well, it doesn't come with a rule book, right? Parenting doesn't come with a rule book. But to put an ordinance in place that fines restaurants for non-compliance, if it's what they choose to do in their restaurant is to offer soda pops as part of their package, and that's worked for them. And parents allow for those things to take place. I mean, you say it doesn't affect the restaurant owner, but until there's a complaint, and then is that a fine? Oh, no, they don't get their business license renewed. Is that
No,
what
it doesn't affect their food license at all. It's
Okay,
completely separate.
what is the consequence?
Well, that's what we were saying could be determined. There doesn't have to be any fine associated with it. It's determined by the community. So that would be with your input of what we would do.
Okay, so it's whatever we decide to put up here. So
I mean-
as council to put that fine in place?
Yes, but it would not affect in any way their food license. So it doesn't, they're completely separate, wouldn't follow in the food code. And that's why we were saying around enforcement.
So, okay, so that there's a fine with it. Parents-
Potentially,
Potentially.
yes.
Otherwise, what's the point? If there isn't a consequence, then what's the point for an ordinance?
It's about, well, the whole point would be reducing sugar beverage consumption for kids. That's really the main goal, is to reduce that. And so one way to do that is with the marketing towards children. So when you see liquid sugar, so like a sugary sweetened beverage is the number one way that children receive like sugar intake.
It's up to the parents, period. Right?
They can, that's
But
why it's a default option.
if we're going after an educational campaign, it's for the parents, not necessarily for restaurant owners or restaurateurs or the public or the government. We get too involved we have too much government involvement in privatized businesses really is what they are, and that's what they choose to do. And now we're going to go in and tell them and then possibly put a fine. But if we're not going to put a consequence, then why put it forward anyways? Why can't we just have a campaign that, on less sugar without putting an ordinance in place? Is probably what the thought is from a lot of people in this community. Is they're tired, we could put ordinance, I'd like to put ordinances in place to keep these kids out of trouble. That's where we've got some real problems, is try to keep these kids home at night instead of running the streets causing problems. But we can't do that. So, I mean, it seems almost impossible now to start to try to tell them in an ordinance. And I'm all about keeping your kids healthy. But as a parent, I'm the only person in control of that. And staying through without the rest of the city, keeping your children healthy are parental choices. And so I don't know that I would be in support of this. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in, Joe and Brett, real quick, because this is a subject that's close and dear to my heart. I drive council crazy in the back with stuff I recommend in reference to sugar. I should be dead. I was facing dialysis and I was able to beat it by understanding about insulin and glucose and all the things that I went through. They were going to invite my wife and give her the bad news. And once you're on dialysis, the key syllable there is die, because you will die. And when we talk about white sugar and we talk about things like flour and vegetable oil, the only thing I can tell you is rather go home and throw that stuff in the trash, because it's killing us. Robert F. Kennedy would love to hear this spiel. I'm sure you know who Robert F. Kennedy is. But the things that we're doing to ourselves, the things we're doing to our bodies, a lot of the time it has to do with how cheap things are. For instance, go buy regular white sugar and go buy monk fruit, which is the sweetest thing known to man. Stevia, all these things are all substitutes, but it's not cheap for a lot of people that are on fixed incomes. But you don't have to drop that in the process. Diabetes 1 and diabetes 2. Diabetes is one when you can't produce insulin. Diabetes 2 is when you have it and you're breaking the pump, basically. Now they're calling, when you have so much sugar, that that glucose wants to feed your brain. That's called diabetes. And that's called now diabetes 3. You're aware of that, right? Diabetes 3, and it's the body, the brain prefers ketones to give its energy. Everything else goes to your joints and your muscles. That's what's happening here. We're having type 3 diabetes, because it's now called Alzheimer's and dementia. It's right in front of us, guys. And we keep on feeding this stuff to our children. I'd like to see us educate our students and let them learn about this so they can go home to mom and dad and tell them, Mom, I shouldn't be eating Fruit Loops, okay? And the kids, if they get into this thing and they grab it the way I believe they can teach us an awful lot. So I have a little background on this stuff. I've seen over 200 videos. I've saved my life. I'm trying to save my family's life. But you're going to get in a lot of resistance. I am telling you, I have never had more people in my family tell you think you're so smart. You think you know everything. Well, why did you ask me how I dropped 40 pounds? That's how I did it. I got a little bit disciplined. I found alternatives. You can do fermented bread if you want. Once in a while, you can go to Carl's Jr., flip through there and get a salad, a lettuce wrapped salad. And you can go there's all kind of things you can do with sandwiches. There's ways around this. The alternatives are not like 10 years ago when you had to eat cardboard. So when you see people drinking a diet pop's not the answer. Diet pop mimics the introduction of insulin to your system. It wants to chase that crap out of your body. So I got a little background on this stuff. I know I'm trying to save my council members. I'm trying to save my kids, my family. You guys, you don't know how much this means to me. Please come back. And it's not so much coming out there and telling new ordinance and new laws. Maybe it's the education versus the penalization end of it. Maybe that's something we could look at, but listen to your kids. Sometimes they're smarter than we are. I'm sorry, Brett, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to kind of double back on some of the concerns. So this isn't to fine businesses and shut businesses down. This isn't to strip parental choice. As they said, this will not strip any choice. This is just more so to set the default as a healthy option where those other choices are still readily available and an option that is able to be chosen. They just want the default option to be healthy and not sugary. So people can still get a Pepsi, people can still get an apple juice, whatever they want to do. And it's not meant to find people. The concept that I came up with when talking to them is I do like the complaint-based one as well. And then maybe doing a 3-strike policy in a sense. And you'd only probably run into issues if, in a sense, you refuse to comply. But there's no reason to refuse to comply, in my opinion, if water is a free option that you pretty much would already be offering to the kids' meal. And they're going to help with the paying of reprinted menus. There's basically no added costs. And if anything, it might reduce costs for the business owner, the way I see it. I don't really see it as a negative thing by just promoting health for children, but still allowing everybody to make their own choice. It's just the default, unless you choose otherwise, will be healthier.
Joe? Latino?
I want to ask, have you been before the School District 60 and School District 70 boards? And have you spoken with the administrators, the superintendent, or the director of cafeteria services in both of those school districts? Have you done that?
We have not worked with them directly just because of this being so focused on a municipal level policy. We have not worked with the schools since it won't directly affect them.
It won't directly affect them?
In the school-based setting.
It will directly affect them because basically in education, you have the cafeteria services and they're providing in some places, I'm not sure exactly what they do here in District 60 and 70 in the morning, but young people go in the morning and they have availability to various products to eat and drink, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I highly encourage you to get in touch with the Director of Cafeteria Services, which would be one of the assistant superintendents in both District 60 and District 70. Obviously, you've also spoken with the community college and with the CSUP. Have you
Not
spoken with them?
PCC, Children First.
So you've spoken with PUC, Pueblo Community College,
Yes.
PCC, okay? But you have not spoken with anyone from District 60 or the Pueblo County School District 70? No?
No, not yet.
Okay. I think that's very important. I'm willing to help you with those kinds of things because of my background. But I think that's a key. And then we have these daycare centers. Are you working with any of them?
Yes, so that's where we had a meeting with Children First. That's where we started since they have connections with childcare providers. And we recently also presented to the Early Childhood Council. So those were some ways that we wanted to try to connect with childcare providers to gain their support of this initiative as well.
I think the program that you've spoken to very eloquently is very important. I have a son with childhood diabetes, now in his early 50s. I have a grandson who's 23 years old, same thing. Okay. So I understand what we're talking about here. And it's very important to me that we really, I really like the program that you're presenting, but it's important that these school systems, District 60 and District 70, understand, and hopefully they will work with you. And I'm more than willing to help you with that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Maestri?
The moment that these restaurants that offer bundles, I know families, they go there for a reason, and that's because of the bundles of the meals. The moment they find out that they have to pay $3.50 for a soda on top of their bundle that they've been buying for years for these kids, it's gonna affect the outcome. And so I just, again, if that's what a parent chooses, now you're telling them they have to spend $3.50 if they decide to give their child a soda. And it does change, does affect things. Then what's next? They don't have a soda, they have milk, but they've got pancakes with syrup and whipped cream and a little happy face pancake, or they've got donuts, or they've got a cinnamon roll. I mean, where does it stop?
You make a good point.
You know, I'm just, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to come in as the government and say, oh, well, we're going to prevent this from happening when you've got other sugary substances that the restaurant is offering,
Right.
you know, and so again, it's allow parents to parent and allow business owners to run their own gimmicks so that ever they want to bring people in to do business with them.
Thank you, Councilor Maestri. If I may respond to your comments, that's a big reason why we're hoping that this could be an easy way to make a large impact, because children are already consuming so much added sugar from so many other sources, like those pastries or whatever it is they choose to enjoy. So this could be one simple way to hopefully make a very effective and large impact in the long run.
And I appreciate the way your belief system and how you feel that this is, but I also represent a bunch of constituents that don't believe that government needs their hands in the middle of everything. And so that's just for me, what I see it as. Thank you.
I
I
understand.
just want to add something real quick in reference to, and I get just exposure to this. There's a thing called DUS syndrome, Lennox-Gastaut DUS syndrome, and these are all seizure. And my granddaughter has a lot of this stuff. And we noticed a marked difference when we applied a thing called a keto diet. I'm sure if you heard of keto diet, it's an expensive bread when you go to the store, but we were able to transfer and then some of the things that were happening in her brain, we were losing her. And there's times when she's up and down, it all depends. She comes with 6 other brothers and sisters. Can you imagine trying to keep her off sugar with that? But we found out when we reduced that sugar intake and anything that has to do with carbohydrates, she got clearer. And I can't tell you that's going to happen all the time. And I don't know how severe other people's, but it's a proven fact. That glucose is a killer. So just for what it's worth, and I've seen it happen within my own family. So I just wanted to pass that on before I forgot. I'm sorry. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clyde, can we bring up the slides again? And I'm looking on that one slide when when Ms. Stapleton was talking about the cards from the different zip codes. Because, to Councilor Maestri's point that, parent choice and she represents parents. You surveyed the community, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
you've done all of this pre-work and in getting community member buy-in. Can you talk a little bit about that again, Gabby?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We started with our survey that we created. It was called Drink to Grow, and it was designed to determine common knowledge among community members, specifically on sugary drinks, and if that's something that they choose to order for their kids when they do dine out. And at the end of the survey, we asked if they would be in support of a voluntary healthy drinks and kids meal policy requirement for restaurants. And 81% of those 321 people did say they are in support of this.
And that's in addition to the pledge cards. So that was our first kind of ground softening. We wanted to do that education piece. So the first year we really took and put education around just sugary beverage consumption. And we did that initial survey to see if this is even something our community wants. But based on the responses, that really gave us the confidence to be able to move forward with this. And so that's when we decided to move forward with the Healthy Drinks and Kids Meal Policy and then begin that work around restaurant outreach. And so now we're also doing individuals at the events that we do. And again, it's always going to be tied to education because truly, again, it's to reduce the sugary beverage consumption for youth. And we're looking at 12 and under because those are those who usually order off of a children's, menu.
But you haven't approached the elementary schools, District 60 and District 70?
Sorry, I wasn't done, Counselor Meishu, with my questions.
Oh.
So with how many people are in support of this policy, I would like to move. I really like Counselor Boston's point of the 3 strikes and then maybe you get a fine or something like that. I would like to move this policy to or an ordinance forward so that way we can help protect our kids from over consuming sugary beverages. And I think that in the long term, we're going to see a lot more downstream effects to Counselor Gomez's point. Maybe they get better in school because they're clearer, because they have less sugar. They're going to do better on the sports field because they can run better because they're consuming less sugar. They want to engage, in different pro-social opportunities. So that way they're on the streets less. It may be funny, but it's actually research-based. There's a lot of data that supports this. So I'd like to move this forward and I'm in full support of this.
Thank you very much, Counselor Martinez.
Can we look at anything in reference to more of the incentive side instead of the penalty side? I mean, I don't know how that works. Or maybe a restaurant like Brett has and, introducing people to maybe salsa and some fruit in it or whatever. I don't know how that works. But there's got to be something we can do because we're literally talking about saving our kids. And it's, they depend on us and they're, so I don't know if that could something you guys could consider. I think the route Latino talked about going through the school could have something to do with that, but more on incentive based. I think we're all a bit concerned about the penalty phase of this, but is there anything that you guys can think of? Have you thought about that end of it in incentive wise? There is incentives.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair Gomez. The most important incentive that we can offer is the support to help with those menu revisions so that it does offset the cost to the restaurant and hopefully won't be a burden for them to make this change. In addition to that, I think there's some options and flexibility. And Jessica, if there's anything else I'm missing.
No, I mean,
Please.
I think we're willing to explore that. I think, again, it's to reduce sugary sweetened beverages for youth. So that's really how do we do that, as a community and really have the buy-in. And other, municipalities like restaurant owners, I think similar to Counselor Boston, we're very proud to do that and really wanted to say like, hey, this is how I'm contributing to the betterment of the youth. So if we can definitely explore all options and see if there's other municipalities who have done some kind of incentive.
Can I ask Brett real quick? In reference to things like options, instead of sugar, stevia cost differences, maybe monk fruit differences, is it a big cost to you?
So speaking for personally, so back to your incentives, the reprinting of menus is an incentive. I feel like that's going to be the biggest cost incurred by a restaurant. Again, this isn't a force. It's not like you're gonna have to pay $5 extra to get a soda. They could do it something as simple as if they were already bundling in a soda, the default will be water. I don't even know if they necessarily have to charge additional for a soda. It can just be by default, you're gonna get the water. But if the parent says, no, we don't want water, I still want my kid to have Pepsi, they can. It's just the default in the bundle will be healthier. So it's trying to just, in a sense, push forward the healthier option as the first choice rather than, one of the other options. Now, when it comes to costs on some of those other things, I don't have any of those things. I offer like a sugar-free syrup. I have some 0-calorie beverages, iced tea or whatever, Sobe Life water, things like that. They're not really much higher in costs. The sugar-free syrup may be a bit higher than the regular. But again, this isn't necessarily a a requirement. Water doesn't cost much, you know, it's already provided for free. The change that I had to make to my menu was very simple. There's a copy in this as well. And all I said is that by default, all kids' meals are going to be served with water. And I have a list of all the other things I offer that will be available for additional costs.
Good.
And like I said, I don't really see it as a impact. I didn't personally have a bundled meal, so it's not changing much for me. I just figure helping to promote the youth health is a good thing. And I support the idea. There's still parental choice. There's still, you know, if people want to pay extra, I don't really see it as a negative by any means, except for trying to offer the education of, hey, let's try to make the kids healthier.
Thank you, Counselor Boston.
Councilor Martinez, please.
I wonder, Counselor Gomez, to your point around and like, you know, doing more of a positive approach. I wonder if we could even do something where it's like recognition of restaurants that have opted into this of like, I support kids, and then it's like a shout out, right? Or like a sticker on their front door that's like, I support kids. And that's how you know that they, have bundled. I don't know, it's as an option.
Well, maybe, I don't know if we could figure out how you
Oh.
could recognize, maybe after a year's time and come back and some kind of recognition in front of council for those restaurants that are really participating and doing a good job. I don't know if you can do that or not, but that might be something. But the idea that we're trying to save our kids or we're even paying attention to it makes me happy. And then, I just went to the restaurant the other day, and more restaurants seems to be now offering sugar-free ketchup. Makes me a happy man. I mean, there's like syrup, same thing. There's a lot of things that are changing. So I think we're on our way, I hope. Councilor Maestri, please.
So what's wrong with just educating the restaurateurs and letting them make that choice and put the sticker on there without us being involved in it?
Well, I'm just concerned about how good we can become as incentive wise. And again, I
We
listen.
have to order incentive. If they're wanting to be recognized for healthy options for children in this community, that's incentive enough.
Well, I'm gonna gladly promote Southwest Grill for doing it. And
Southwest Grill wasn't giving sodas to begin with.
well, he's changing his tune now. He's giving.
Well, he
more
wasn't
kids.
giving to begin with.
Councilor Martinez.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see an ordinance because there's more teeth in it, because it could be enforceable. And so that way, people like Southwest West Grill or other restaurants that aren't doing it do come into compliance with helping to protect kids. So that's why I would like to move forward with an ordinance, because there's more teeth, because it's enforceable, because there is a potential to bring on even more restaurants.
Councilor Maestri.
I don't know that we as a council are supposed to be promoting any business individually. What is the law behind that? Are we supposed to be supporting and upholding businesses individually, doing shout outs for businesses?
Is that a question? To
No,
Pam,
that's
or
where
I would
Mr.
say,
discussion?
I would say if we want to discuss this further, we can, but just kind of throwing around hypotheticals of stickers or shout outs or Facebook posts and things like that. If we want to have a discussion where we actually compare ordinances of other cities, Councilor Martinez sent me a few. There are some cities that have a $500 fine. There's other cities that don't have any fine at all. This could be treated, for example, the same way we treat the smoking ordinance here in town. The city thought that it was important enough to restrict smoking indoors and in restaurants and pass that ordinance. So it's not unusual for the city to pursue this, and you can look towards those types of enforcement mechanisms for an example.
President Aiello.
Thank you. I thank you for the presentation. This is good information and we should have it. And I don't disagree that, you should drink water or whatever. That makes sense. I find it somewhat ironic that we're worried about whether they're going to drink a Coke with their processed nuggets and macaroni and cheese and all those other things. And so what's next? This is the problem with ordinances, is that what's next? You say you can't, you got to do water. Then you say you can't do nuggets, then you can't do macaroni and cheese. So if a parent wants to take their customer out to a restaurant, all they can have are pineapple slices and water. And, you know, any parents, mothers, fathers that have ever taken their kids to a restaurant, it doesn't matter what the menu says. Junior wants a Dr. Pepper or he's going to tear the restaurant up or wants pancakes or whatever. And I think it's very important. And I like the way the conversation went of, hey, this restaurant's participating in a healthy lifestyle for our children. This is something that the health department is very much behind. City council could do a resolution in support of that type of thing, but I would stop short of putting in a resolution that, or an ordinance that actually came up with penalties and things like that. They're dictating to restaurants what they have to put on their menu and the way that they have to sell their food. I just don't think that's right. I get what the counselor said on smoking, but I think smoking and a Pepsi are two totally different things. And a parent's right to raise their child the way they want to raise their child, or feed their child the way they want to feed their child, is really their choice. And I don't think we should be in the business of telling them how they should do it. But I do agree that what you're doing makes sense in the way that we were talking earlier. So that's my 2 cents worth.
So I'd like to ask one more thing. In reference to some things that are right in front of us, like a can of pop, it's only about 18 teaspoons of sugar in it. So those are the big things that are staring us in the face. In reference to making the change, I think it's more of a behavior modification program or way we can learn on how we can move to healthier stuff. That's what I think has happened. I'm not really in favor of penalization over education, but I think we're failing in the education part of it. We're getting better. It's going to take some time. That's how I see it. Counselor Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are other communities that have passed an ordinance that don't have any enforced fines at all. I would like to continue having this conversation, but with an ordinance, I hear that, you know, you don't want fines. There are other communities that don't have fines, but I still would like to move forward with an ordinance.
Okay. Counselor Tina.
All I want to say is again, education is the profession for every other profession. And what we're trying to do here is educate. And I think if you go to the school system and you visit with them, you're going to get a great result. Again, I don't know that we have I'm not real focused on passing something that's going to deny somebody to take their child to a restaurant to get food and then say to the child or them say, well, we can't have a Coke, can't have a 7-Up or whatever. And I hope that I'm making sense, but I think education is a profession for every other profession. And what we're trying to do is educate here. Health is the key. It's
Okay.
the focus.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up, folks. Thank you for your time. If anybody's got anything else really searing, but I want to thank you guys for bringing this things forward. I think we've got the conversation started. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda, item C, Grace Ride Medical Transportation. Fraser Gobina, owner and CEO of Grace Ride Medical Transportation, and Jason Wilson, partner and CEO of Colorado Secure Transportation. Slated for 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Anytime you're ready, you got your mic on there, you're good? Okay.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Fraser Gobina.
Pull that mic a little closer to you because you're hard to hear.
Okay. Better?
Better.
Okay, my name is Fraser Gobina. I am with Grace Ride LLC, the CEO of Grace Ride. We provide medical transportation for people that don't have any other means of transportation to get to and from their medical appointments. With that medical appointment comes cancer treatments, physical therapy, dialysis centers. So we provide transportation for Medicaid recipients to get to those appointments. The reason we are here today is because since August of 2023, Grace Ride has not been reimbursed by Medicaid for services rendered. And we're here asking for the support of the Pueblo community in assisting Grace Ride get reimbursement for services we have provided. Just to give you a little bit background, Grace Ride has came to Pueblo in 2023. In 2023, we had about 75 to 80 drivers and other staff members employed by Grace Ride and from this the city of Pueblo. There was a statewide investigation by HCPF, Healthcare Policy and Financing, for companies that are providing non-emergency medical transportation. That was a blanket investigation throughout the industry, not specific to Grace Ride, but just a blanket investigation. And that investigation started in August 2023. Since August 2023, Grace Ride continued to provide services without any reimbursement from the department. And since August of 2023, we have now been cleared of any fraud, waste, or abuse by the department itself, but yet we continue not to get reimbursed by the department. Since Grace Ride has started operating in the Pueblo community, we have invested close to $2 million of our own resources from other investments into this community, and we are continuing to invest in the Pueblo community. We have proposed to HCPF that we can increase our investment so the community of Pueblo and other connecting counties can have access to healthcare. With this blanket investigation, about 275 other providers were shut down, which highly affects access to healthcare for the community we are fighting for. 270 providers is a lot of providers. We get thousands of calls from Medicaid recipients that are now left without any form of transportation to their medical appointment. And that's how, we thought about coming to the city council, because it's now not just affecting providers, but it's also affecting the community. There's a lot of people left without any transportation from connecting counties, from Otero County, from Las Animas County, from Alamosa, Salida, that used to come to Pueblo to get services. Because there is no means of transportation to get to Pueblo now, a lot of people are stranded with no access to healthcare. And the other implications to Pueblo, we have discussed with healthcare providers. It is affecting major healthcare providers in the Pueblo area because people are, they cannot come to the hospital to get their treatment. So it's affecting healthcare providers, behavioral health providers, and also addiction treatment centers. The other side of the services we provide is for people that are getting addiction treatment. And without the means of transportation, now people are stranded without, they want to get services to get better for their addictions, but they don't have any means of getting there. So it is really affecting the Pueblo community and other communities surrounding Pueblo.
So my name is Jason Wilson. I'm the CEO of Colorado Secure Transportation, and what we do is provide behavioral health secure transport for those that are experiencing crisis. And crisis can be anything from anxiety attack in a GPS location or a transfer between facilities when people are on M1 holds or court-ordered holds. So we're here to support Mr. Gobina's argument and the services they provide. We're two separate companies, but I can speak from my own experience in my company that one of the big challenges across the state, we currently operate in multiple counties across the state, expanding into right now, hopefully 42 counties. So with that, when a city such as Pueblo lacks a behavioral health facility, when someone is placed on an M1 hold, they're transferred from the hospital, Health Solutions, or another mental health provider to another community. Once they are discharged, a clinical decision has been made where they are no longer a threat to themselves or others, and that person is now left stranded in Denver or Colorado Springs with a very challenging dilemma on how to get back here. So how the state sees that on the Medicaid side is those are NEMT transports that need to bring them back here. But there are limitations currently in place of any trip over 25 miles. And while they have a form, it's not necessarily guaranteed that they're reimbursed for that 25 plus miles. So there's a big challenge here because we have patients. I come from a clinical mental health background and a school counseling background. And part of the biggest frustration is how they access help. And we have clients from children all the way to elderly patients who sometimes maybe only need the service once. Then we have frequent flyers that need it regularly. This is also a strain to alleviate it from police department calls, right? From ambulance. When you don't meet medical necessity for an ambulance and you're not detained by the police, then a company like Colorado Secure Transportation is authorized to transport you by the most supportive and least restrictive means possible. But I can tell you that every one of the clients that we pick up, regardless whether it's Pueblo or beyond, their first question and a lot of their anxiety is, how am I going to get home? So rather than focusing on treatment, they focus more on how they're going to be transported and how they're going to get back to their family. And that's what Mr. Gobina is trying to accomplish, is the expansion of not only his company, but bringing more patients into Pueblo to utilize resources here that other rural communities don't have, but also the ability to collaboratively work for the overall health and wellness of not only just our community, but also Colorado in whole. And just being able to expand, provide jobs, economic growth and development in whole, in totality and benefit.
Okay.
One point I would like to emphasize on is with our proposal to the department, within a year of that proposal, we are investing close to $3.5 million. And we are proposing that Pueblo will be the headquarters for this investment. As you can see on the second page, we have a map of the proposal to HCPF, which will have close to 20 counties that we will be serving. But we will have Pueblo as the headquarters for that investment. With the 220 drivers and staff members proposed, the majority of those staff members will be employed from the Pueblo community. That will bring in a lot of job opportunities, a lot of economical growth to Pueblo. And Grace Ride is not the only business we working on in the Pueblo area. With the support of the city council, if we can get the issue with Grace Ride resolved, we also are working on different sectors of investment to bring into the Pueblo community. Some of them, and most of this has to do with behavioral health and mental health well-being, starting from sober livings to the transitional houses and other businesses we are proposing to bring to the county.
Okay, council have any comments? Councilor Flores.
I'm a little bit confused. Maybe you can clarify this for me. I thought I heard you say that for many of your clients, you're not being paid. And that as a result of that, you're asking for us to try to help you. What specifically are you asking the city council? What do you need from us? Because it sounds like we don't really have any oversight over the Department of Health, the Colorado Department of Health, or any kind of federal agency. And it sounds like, according to this letter, that you're under a prepayment review. I'm not sure what that means, whether or not, that it might be the reason why you're not being reimbursed. I'm assuming that you can also build private insurance companies and other kinds of instruments that provide physical and mental health. But it sounds like this pertains to Medicaid patients and the proper reimbursement to your firm for providing transportation. So the question is, how can we help you? I'm having a hard time seeing what we can do.
Right. So the initial step that we have in resolving the issues with HCPF as a city council and as Grace Ride being one of the businesses that are within the Pueblo community, a support letter from the city council will, even if you guys don't have a direct say over HCPF, but a supporting letter from you guys will go a long way. Just for full disclosure, we have met with some of the commissioners that are already showing support to Grace Ride after doing their due diligence on the company, talking to healthcare providers as well. So what we're asking from the city council today is to continue that support and then to give Grace Ride a support later from the city council to influence HCPF and to see the critical services that Grace Ride is providing in the Pueblo community.
And the letter would be addressed to the Colorado Department of Health and Policy and Financing.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now I've got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on council? Any other questions, comments? Okay, gentlemen, I think we're good. Thank you. And now, what time is it? We'll be back shortly. We'll be back shortly. 7:20. We'll be back. Thank you. That concludes the work session.
They must have been in compliance. This is, I never saw this before. Look at that. So have you ever seen them?
That's what I was like.
This is a disclaimer. They're not doing any action with the federal government.